What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the shop. Today I want to talk to you about some stuff that's going to get into the weeds of politics. And I know a lot of people, they would prefer that I didn't say anything about politics. Of course, I think those people are my political enemies, and that's why they're trying to shut me up by, complaining about different content, stuff like this, claiming all sorts of stuff, filing all sorts of false claims against my channel, stuff like this. It's their old-fashioned MO. They've been doing this to lots of different people and getting them in trouble here on YouTube. Well, it's always going on. So anytime I make a political video like this, inevitably the trolls are going to come out and they're going to attack my channel. So I have, contemplated whether I want to continue to make political content because, again, all it does is hurt me. But I've decided I'm going to go ahead because a lot of the stuff that I focus on has to do with prepping. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, if you're prepping, what are you prepping for? Well, I'm prepping for this kind of stuff right here to happen. The seams of the United States of America being ripped apart, the foundations, the very building blocks of our nation being burned and shredded right before our very eyes. That's what I'm concerned about. So let's get into this. Number one, possibility, and this is not necessarily in any order of importance, but I just had to write these things down because they were flowing out of my head. So this is the number one possibility on my list here. Biden is forced by his handlers to withdraw from the 2024 election. They make him pull out of the race. They'll say it was for health reasons and because he wants to spend or needs to spend more time with his family and stuff like this. They'll pull the dementia out. They'll show all of the gaffes. They'll show, they'll have every excuse in the world to do this. So I think this is a very high possible, maybe even probable forecast here. This could happen. At the last freaking minute, they're going to wait. It may be the October surprise. I don't know what the deadline is for bringing in a new candidate, but this would definitely open the door. It would kick the door wide open for Big Mike, Michelle Obama, or Gruesome Newsom, Gavin Newsom from out in California, to take the reins of power. And those two are both foaming at the bit to do it. Michelle Obama has recently come out and been in the media a lot more. Barack Obama has been making himself more present in the media. I think this is a very highly probable outcome. Even the Democrats know, and Biden has lost tons of support from not only the Democrat, loyalists in the party, the deep state commies that are in the Democrat Party, but also the swing voters. They're losing their grip on the black population in this country. They're losing their grip on the illegals that are coming in. They're not all necessarily voting Democrat anymore. Some of them are starting to see through the lies and the deceit and seeing what the Democrats really are and what they're pushing for. So a lot of people are waking up, and that's good news. But all of this being said, if they bring in a Michelle Obama as president and maybe Gavin Newsom as vice president, could you guys imagine how popular that ticket would be amongst certain groups of people? It would ignite a firestorm of possibilities in the Democrat Party. And it would definitely make it a lot easier to finagle the outcome of the 2024 election if they had someone who at least appeared popular. And I think they could make Michelle Obama appear popular amongst the Democrats. And again, in the end, this whole thing could eventually spark a civil war. Number two, Biden could be JFK'd by the deep state. I want to be careful in what I say here because I don't want to set off the YouTube censors and or have some secret service knocking down my fucking door or something because I suggested that this could happen. Biden could be JFK'd by the deep state. Not by anyone I know or anyone associated with me, but this, deeply seated, permanent political class that resides in Washington, D.C. I believe those are the people, like the people in the CIA, some of them, not all of them, but some of the higher ups in the CIA, they know all about JFK and what happened there. And you might say, well, why would they want to do that? Because it's an easy way to get rid of Biden, and also they could make him into a sort of martyr. If nothing else, they could use this to blame what they have labeled the ultra-MAGA right-wing extremists, the far-right extremists, the racists, the misogynists, the homophobes, all of that, anti-LGBTQ, anti-democracy, they'll say. And of course, if this happens, it could spark a civil war. Depending on how the deep state plays their cards after that, it could lead to a civil war. Number 3, absolutely nothing changes, and they steal the 2024 elections in the exact same way they did in 2020. That could spark a civil war. Although, after seeing the way that the American people reacted and were basically railroaded by the media into believing for a while, at least some of them, that January 6th was an actual insurrection, then I doubt I just don't have much faith that the American people would actually muster the resistance to spark a civil war after seeing what they did in 2020. So I'm not really, that's lower on the list of that one, sparking a civil war. So they do nothing. And we've seen that the Republicans, even though they've been in power, they have done nothing to change or correct all of the errors, all of the mistakes, all of the intentional missing ballots and different things like that, extra ballots that were showing up. And I got to be careful about what I say here, but you guys remember, if you've been paying attention, you know about all the stuff. What's it called? The Mules movie that Dinesh D'Souza did. They had all those people that they caught on video camera and they tracked them with their cell phones, dropping off ballots over and over and over. So we better move on from there or we're going to get banned again. So that's a real high likely possible outcome, I think. Nothing changes and they steal it just like they did in 2020. Why the hell wouldn't they do it? They've done it before. They got away with it. They control the media. They control the narrative. So why wouldn't they do it again? I say that's really high on the list of possibilities. Number 4, World War III. And, it's arguable whether or not we're actually in World War III right now. I mean, a lot of people say we are. I kind of tend to think we are, at least at the beginning stages of this. And you're going to continue to see wars and rumors of wars. And they could be at such high levels that whether they're real or manufactured wars or rumors of wars, the Biden regime will use the War Powers Act of like 1972 or 73 to declare a state of emergency. Basically, it's like martial law, military martial law in the United States. They could then postpone the elections until the situation is deemed calm enough to proceed with the election. So basically, until they feel like it. Biden could say, yeah, War Powers Act, the nation is in such a disarray right now and so many enemies potentially could be getting us. I mean, hell, I've had the border open for the past 3.5 years, so who knows how many enemies have come in here. They could have, sleeper cells and all that ready to activate at a moment's notice. And they would use all of that and all of that propaganda in the media to make you believe whether or not there really was a threat that was so bad they had to postpone elections. They could make you believe there was. And we all know how manipulating, we'll say that the mainstream media is. This could obviously spark a civil war. So that's what a lot of these have in common. Moving on. Number 5, maybe Trump will be JFK'd by the deep state. There's been a lot of talk about that. And, why wouldn't they? They can't get rid of this guy using lawfare or anything else. Nothing seems to stick to him. That's why they call him the Teflon Don back in the day or whatever. Nothing seems to ever stick to him, although they think they've got everything on him. And then he gets away, most of the time scot-free. What's going to happen there if they JFK Trump? I think a lot of Trump's, especially his really devout followers, the people that think Trump is a messiah, are going to freak the hell out. And there could be a civil war as a result of that. Unbelievable. Number 6, Trump is imprisoned and or disqualified from the ballot in enough states that it could change the outcome of the 2024 election. So if they do this in enough states that people, even if it doesn't really, if people have the perception that what they're doing to Trump changed the outcome. I mean, look, dude, it's like this. If you You know what? Who was it? Goebbels that said if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes truth or something along those lines. I mean, that's what the mainstream media has been doing to all of us in the United States of America, programming us with their programming for what, you know, at least since the late 60s, early 70s, when Operation Mockingbird was and still is in full effect. So, I mean, that could happen. It's pretty likely, and that could spark a civil war if Trump is imprisoned or disqualified and enough people feel like, hey, that changed the outcome. And you know, like back to Goebbels for a minute, a lie that's repeated often enough becomes the truth. I mean, even if Trump isn't prosecuted in the court of law, he's been prosecuted by all of the people that were already anti-Trump a little bit to begin with. They just hear the headline news and they don't look any deeper, and they're like, Trump's got 90 indictments against him. Yep, they got him this time. They just keep believing it, even though nothing ever sticks. It doesn't matter. The point is they've painted this image of a criminal in the minds of all these people, and that's the real damage. So it doesn't matter if they actually prosecute him or not. The damage is already done. So you could argue, and I would make the argument, that election interference is going on openly right now and no one's doing anything about it. Number 7, Trump wins in a landslide. It's so big that they can't possibly cheat their way into another victory like 2020. And this would immediately send every blue city, especially your major metropolis places, all your big cities, every big blue city is going to be having George Floyd style riots the next day. People will be screaming at the sky like that one girl. Ah! All that stuff will be on blast, on repeat. All the media people will be crying, you know, the Rachel Maddows and the people like that. They'll bring Stelter back. All these people, it'll be the same old thing over again that we've seen before. So we already know what to expect. These people are going to freak the hell out. They're going to go and you know, they'll probably have their own version of January 6th. It'll be way worse. The media will downplay it. They'll say, oh no, it was just peaceful protests, mostly peaceful protests. Meanwhile, the Capitol building will be burning behind them or something like that. We've all seen this shit before. So that's probably what they're going to do. You don't need a crystal ball to see this. You just look at what they've done in the past and know that they're going to dial it up to 11 this time. Because one thing that all these people, it seems like on the left, have in common is they want civil war. They want violence. They want riots and cities burning and stuff like this. The Summer of Love is my proof of that. And not only that, many, many other instances. Again, after Trump was inaugurated in 2016, I believe, they basically had their own version of an insurrection and nothing was done about it. Number 8. COVID-24 could be released from some U.S. government facility or sponsored lab somewhere from some shithole country that you can't even point to on a map. It could be released on the world because that's how desperate they are to hold and maintain power. They would. If you don't think they would, they would. They would certainly release it intentionally to hold power. Biden and his people certainly would. Because they have an objective to fulfill, to complete. And it's the destruction of everything good about the United States of America and bringing in this Build Back Better globalist bullshit that's going to destroy everything that's great about our foundational principles. So that's kind of a big deal to me. And of course, if they bring in something like COVID-24, maybe they won't call it that, but they'll bring in some other disease or whatever that scares everybody. And immediately that will give Biden the license to do lockdowns, mail-in voting, masks, mandated jabs. That'll suddenly be the new norm again. Remember that? The new norm? They'll bring it back. This would create prime conditions for a repeat of 2020. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And a lot of people have had enough of that shit. And this could easily spark a civil war. This could be the catalyst right here when they do something like this. Now the question is, again, what will the American people believe? I don't know who it is that still watches mainstream media, but somebody must watch mainstream media because they're still on the air. Otherwise, they would go off the air. Now I know Actually, as I'm saying that, they get a lot of government subsidies and stuff like this for places like PBS and, Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! And all these other commies that are out there basically talking about an anti-American philosophy that's pro-socialism, anti-capitalism, anti-free speech, anti-Second Amendment, on and on and on, all of these things. All the MSM stations are like that. And for some reason, people keep watching that crap and keep believing it. It's like they want to be told lies. I don't understand that. Moving on. Number 9. EMP. And we've talked a lot about this on the channel. Every time I mention EMP, someone comes in and says I'm fear-mongering. No, I'm looking at the writing on the wall. I'm reading the tea leaves that have been laid out in front of me. I didn't make this shit up. I didn't invent electromagnetic pulse weapons. Someone else did. They're out there. They could be used. And it would cripple a nation like the United States of America overnight, instantly. I suggest you go watch or listen to the video, the audio rather, or read the book 1 second after. Really important. That's how the United States could go down. You should check it out. These electromagnetic pulse weapons could be used by America's enemies, both foreign and domestic. So, in other words, this could be a false flag EMP attack because Biden and his people want to hold power so badly that they would actually attack the United States infrastructure to maintain that power. I mean, would you put it past them? You've seen some of the stuff that they're doing, the dirty dealing with Burisma and get the guy fired and all this other stuff. I mean, it's just atrocious. Atrocious. The way they're allowing this continual stream of basically, child smuggling up through the southern border. They know what's going on and they haven't closed the border. Why is that? Lots of questions that we can't really answer those questions. Of course, if there's an EMP attack, this would mean no elections at all, at least for the foreseeable future. And we would be thrust back into the 1800s and millions of us would die within the first 2 weeks. Especially think about people that are on like life-sustaining medications and or machines. If that power suddenly goes off and it's not coming back on, lots of people are going to die. I mean, real quick. Within 2 weeks, millions. This would spark a type of civil war eventually. I think first people would have to learn how to survive, and then they would start forming up into, small factions, small groups, and then those groups would join together, and then they would get bigger and bigger. And so eventually that could lead to people going, hey, those guys were the ones that caused this. We're going to go after them. And the other guys, it could lead to a civil war situation, but it would take probably decades, to be honest with you. What it would do worse than that is if an EMP was let off, whether that's a false flag done by our own country or some other country is allowed to or encouraged to detonate EMPs above our atmosphere, that would open the door for enemy nations to come in, like China or Russia or whoever wanted to come in. Maybe Mexico comes up and takes back Texas through their La Raza doctrine and all that stuff. I mean, there's no telling what all could happen once our infrastructure is broken like that, once the backbone is broken like that. So I think that's a very high possibility. I don't want to say probability, but it looks more and more probable as time goes by and as Biden gets us more further entrenched in these, foreign wars all around the world, except for our border is wide open, and they're allowing these people to come in. Who knows how many enemies have already come in? No one knows. Number 10, last one on the list here, the MAD doctrine. And if you don't know, that stands for mutually assured destruction. So Biden could get us further involved in full scale. It could lead up to a full scale thermonuclear war with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, etc., etc. Take your pick. How many freaking fires can Biden start around the world or get us involved in? Even if he didn't start them, he's the first one to get us all, involved head first. It's just unbelievable. The only reason you do this kind of stuff is you're trying to destroy a country. And he's doing a mighty fine job of it. In the end, though, if there is full-scale thermonuclear war, in the end, everyone loses. All of us lose. The only people that are winners in a deal like that are the New World Order globalists and their multi-million-dollar bunkers. I don't know if you heard, but Zuckerberg, he just built him a, I don't know, I can't remember, $15-20 million nuclear proof, EMP proof fallout bunker out in Hawaii. What does he know that we don't know? I don't know, but he might know something. He might be privy to some information that you and I aren't privy to. And when I see rich people like Zuckerberg doing stuff like that, it makes me raise an eyebrow and go, okay, it's coming. I'll be honest, there's probably not much of a chance for civil war if the MAD doctrine is used, and they go ahead and launch us into full-scale thermonuclear war. There probably won't be much of a chance of civil war because civilization as we know it will cease to exist. Life on planet Earth perhaps will cease to exist. There's enough nukes out there that if everybody launched them all at once, it's theorized they could actually destroy the planet. Definitely life in the northern hemisphere. So, hey, that's where I live. I might want to be paying attention to that sort of stuff. I might want to have a plan to, get to some remote land somewhere that I own or have access to so that when something like this does happen, I'll be prepared. I might want to have, some Geiger counters or some nuclear biological chemical masks that myself and my wife can wear, and maybe a few others if I can afford them. These are things that I think about. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I'll wear that badge proudly with honor because I know who created the term conspiracy theorist and who weaponized it against the people. So I don't know if you guys heard this last week, I think it was. A few days ago, whenever it was, but Biden gave this speech. And I'm going to read a couple of the excerpts here from his speech. In his opening line, he says, "Today we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it. This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. That is what the 2024 election is all about." He also went on to lie about a bunch of shit, how there were hundreds of officers injured on January 6th, and I'm sure a lot were injured, but he said that him and Jill personally attended several, I don't know how he put it, but multiple funerals of officers that were killed on January 6th. Complete BS. Only one guy died from a stroke after January 6th. Only one officer that I'm aware of. Prove me wrong, but I think it's 3 American patriots that showed up to protest, Ashley Babbitt, and there was a couple of other guys and one other woman, actually 4 people that were killed that day by Capitol Police and by other, rioters and stuff like this. But I'm assuming the majority of them were the Capitol Police. And now we're seeing all these videos that have come out where the Capitol Police were the one that actually incited the riot that day, if you want to call it that. Wasn't really much of a riot, but at least not compared to what the Democrats do to, major Democrat-controlled cities. But anyway, nevertheless, may I remind you, America is a republic, a constitutional republic, not a democracy. So why is the left constantly talking about protecting democracy and people that are on the other side are attacking democracy? Well, let me tell you what Karl Marx had to say about that. Karl Marx said, democracy is the road to socialism. And socialism, he didn't say this part, this is my own part, socialism is one step away from pure communism. And that's why these Democrats are always talking about democracy, not the republic. Here's that quote I was trying to think of earlier. If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it, and you will even come to believe it yourself. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's dude. Look it up. And listen to this, speaking of evil dudes. Those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. Joseph Stalin. And as I was looking up this Joseph Stalin quote, because I remembered it, there was a whole bunch of these fact checks that came up that said, did Joe Biden actually say the same thing as Joseph Stalin? And then they were like, no, because Stalin doesn't actually get the credit for that quote. It was actually Lenin that gets the credit for that quote. Even though the end result was Joe Biden did say damn near the exact same thing. Those who vote decide nothing. Those who count the vote decide everything. If you don't know by now, we're on the way down the crapper. We've already fallen off the side of the cliff. We're heading toward the abyss. And there are a few people out there that recognize this and are trying to tell you to get prepared. It's coming. The collapse of everything is coming. I don't know what form it'll take. Could be EMP, could be full-blown nuclear war. Could just be that the dollar collapses because Joe spins us into oblivion before the election. There are a million other possibilities. These are my 10. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know down in the comments, what kind of things do you see happening surrounding or leading up to the 2024 election that could be catastrophic for our country, or maybe a positive outcome? Let me know down in the comments. I always love reading them. As always, guys, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.